The distress beacon pulsed weakly through the void, a dying heartbeat in the darkness of Sector 7. Kai adjusted his neural interface, the familiar weight of 2 decades of piloting settling into his bones. Beside him, Daisy monitored the scan results, her green eyes narrowed in concentration. "It's coming from Umbra 9, she said, her voice tight. "That planet's been quarantined for 15 years. Kai knew the regulations. Umbra 9 was a dead world. Its sun collapsed into a brown dwarf that barely provided enough light to see by. Nothing lived there. Nothing was supposed to live there. We're 3 hours from the nearest relay station," Kai said, his weathered hands dancing across the controls. "By the time we report this and someone gets authorized, whoever's down there will be dead." Daisy looked at him, and he saw the same conflict in her expression that churned in his gut. She was young, barely 5 years in the Merchant Marines, but she'd chosen to crew with him because she still believed in something beyond protocols and profit margins. That made her dangerous to herself, mostly. "Council regulations are clear," she said. But her fingers were already plotting a descent vector. Kai smiled grimly. "So is my conscience." The vagrant star pierced Umbra 9's atmosphere like a needle through silk. The planet's surface was a nightmare of perpetual twilight, the brown dwarf sun casting everything in shades of rust and shadow. Their scanners showed ruins not ancient, but not recent either. A civilization had died here, slowly, as their sun flickered out. The beacon led them to a cluster of structures half buried in volcanic sand. Kai set the ship down with the practiced ease of 10,000 landings, and they suited up in silence. The planet's atmosphere was toxic, a soup of sulfur and methane that would kill a human in minutes. They found the source of the beacon in what had once been a dwelling. 3 figures huddled in the darkness, their biosigns weak but stable. Kai's helmet light swept across them, and his breath caught. They were Quelathi, a species the galaxy had written off as extinct. The adults were barely conscious, their chitinous exoskeletons cracked and dulled by malnutrition. Between them, a juvenile pressed close for warmth, its compound eyes reflecting the light like fractured jewels. "Oh God," Daisy whispered. "They're alive." The adult male, Kai assumed it was male from the ridge pattern, raised one trembling limb toward them. In his hand was a data chip, scratched and worn. Kai took it gently, and the alien's clicking speech filled his helmet. His translator struggled with the dialect, but the meaning came through. "Save a child. Please, we failed." Kai looked at Daisy. She was already pulling out emergency rations and medical supplies, but he could see the truth in her eyes, the same truth he knew in his heart. The adults wouldn't make it. Their bodies were too damaged, too far gone. "But the child, we can't take them," Kai said, the words like ash in his mouth. "Quarantine protocols. If we bring them aboard without proper clearance, we'll be imprisoned. The ship will be impounded. Everything we've worked for." "I know," Daisy cut him off. Her voice was steady, but he could see her hands shaking as she attached a hydration unit to the female's arm. "I know what it costs." They stared at each other in the gloom of that dying world. To humans facing a choice that would define them. Kai thought of his daughter, somewhere in the Sol system, who barely spoke to him anymore. He thought of all the cargo runs, all the credits saved, all the compromises made in the name of survival. He thought of the man he'd been before the war, before the Merchant Marines, before the universe had ground down his ideals into pragmatic dust. "Load them up," he said quietly. All 3. The transit back to the ship was a blur. The Quelathi were feather light in Umbra 9's weak gravity, their bodies hollow bone for a world that no longer existed. Kai carried the child while Daisy supported the mother. The father walked on his own, somehow, pride keeping him upright even as his body failed. In the medical bay, they did what they could. Kai watched the data chip's contents while Daisy worked. It was a history, a desperate archive of a dying people. The Quelathi had been scientists, artists, dreamers. When their sun began to fail, they'd had no faster-than-light capability, no way to escape. Most had chosen death with dignity. This family had chosen hope, sending out beacons year after year, believing someone would come. The mother died first, slipping away with a sound like wind through crystals. The father lasted until dawn. Umbra 9's pathetic dawn, where the brown dwarf crept above the horizon like a burning coal. His last act was to touch his child's head with one antenna, A gesture. Kai's translator rendered simply as remember us. The child they learned her name was something like Crystalline Song at Dusk. Survived. Barely. She was young enough that her body could adapt, could heal. In the weeks that followed, as they made their way to the nearest council station, she began to thrive. Kai knew what awaited them. He'd violated a dozen regulations, contaminated his ship with an unscanned alien organism, entered quarantine space without authorization. His license would be revoked. Daisy's career was over before it had truly begun. The vagrant star would be seized. But when he looked at Crystalline Song at Dusk, watching human entertainment vids with wonder in her compound eyes, learning to communicate through their translation matrix, alive in a universe that had abandoned her entire species, he felt something he hadn't felt in 20 years. He felt human. On the day they docked at Station Praxis 7, Council security was waiting. So were the news drones. Word had gotten out a human crew had saved the last Quelathi. The story had spread like wildfire through the extranet. As Kai was led away in restraints. He saw Daisy carrying Crystalline Song at Dusk down the ramp. He saw alien species from 100 worlds watching with something like reverence. He saw humans in the crowd standing straighter, their eyes bright with something he'd almost forgotten. One old woman, a veteran herself by the medals on her jacket, met his gaze and saluted. That night, in a holding cell, Kai learned that the council was dropping all charges. The public outcry had been too great. Humanity's reputation as a species that chose compassion over convenience, life over law, had crystallized in a single act. Daisy visited him the next morning. "We're famous," she said with a tired smile. "They're offering us a new ship, a better one, and Crystalline Song at Dusk has been granted asylum status. Multiple xenobiological institutes want to study her with her consent, of course." Kai nodded slowly. "And what does she want?" "She wants to stay with us," Daisy said softly. "She says we're her family now." Outside the viewport, the galaxy turned in its eternal dance, vast and cold and indifferent. But in one corner of it, in the heart of a battered freighter captain and his idealistic navigator, something warm still burned. Humanity, after all, had never been about following orders. It had always been about making the hard choice to be kind.